Thanks for joining me for episode 39 of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. This is episode number 17 of season 2, and today I'll be joined by more than a dozen educators who stepped up to share some tech tips for remote learning to benefit any educators who are dealing with coronavirus-induced closures. Don't worry though, they're not in the same room as me. They can quarantine our bodies, friends, but not our voices. We are all here, not socially distanced, just physically distanced, to help each other. There is so much goodness in this episode, so let's get to it.
Hi, I'm Chris Nessie from the House of EdTech Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to right now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast with Jake Miller.
Hello, duct tapers! I've got to say, this is the weirdest episode that I've ever recorded, and for those of you regular listeners, that's saying something. Today's episode was supposed to feature one of my favorite educational bloggers and authors, Caitlin Tucker, but I've pushed that one back to focus on the concept that's on everyone's minds, remote or distance learning during this temporary era, gosh, I hope it's a temporary era, of social distancing. Before we get to that, a little intro for those of you who are new to this show. My name is Jake Miller, and I am an instructional technology coach in Ohio. You, because you're listening, are now a duct taper. What does that mean? Well, duct tapers are awesome educators who like to have fun while learning about educational technology. But they don't just look at educational technology in isolation. They see it as a tool. That actually is where the name educational duct tape comes from. Duct tapers know that educational technology is at its best when we don't view it as the focus of a lesson or activity, but as a tool that we could use to solve problems, meet goals, or address learning standards in education. And what better problem or challenge to apply those tools to than dealing with pandemic-induced distance learning? So if you're in that situation, or will soon be, you're in the right place. But I wasn't initially sure that this podcast was the right place for you to come to for that info. As this scare became more and more real, I struggled with what next step I should take with the podcast. I struggled over the last week or two with feelings of being defeated, scared, or listless. I felt like there was nothing that I could do and that I should just hunker down and wait this out. So I thought, maybe I should put the show on a hiatus. Then I dealt with feelings of wanting to escape from our current reality for a short time. So I thought, maybe I should continue with normal episodes and normal Twitter chats as if nothing has changed. Just block it all out and give listeners something that is normal and unchanged. Heck, give myself something normal and unchanged. The show brings me so much joy. Why not just continue on as if nothing insane is happening? Then I found myself trying to be the one that brought joy and laughter in times of fear and uncertainty. So I thought, maybe I should do an episode that's all games, no ed tech, just fun. Then I found myself striving to support educators dealing with varying levels of remote learning. So I thought maybe a remote learning episode about what we could do if our schools are closed due to the coronavirus. Most recently, I found myself amazed by the number of educators who are supporting others by sharing suggestions and ideas. And that's what did it for me. That better togetherness brought me to my decision. We have so many educators who, first of all, deserve to have a little fun, but second of all, have so much to share with so many who are so stressed the heck out. Today, we're going to do two things to focus on those two items. We're going to first enjoy our connections by playing some silly games, and we're going to hear from educators who were generous enough to share their insights. My hope is that during this, you'll smile, laugh, and ultimately feel a little more zen about this situation that many of us are in. I've got to tell you, I need to feel a little more zen about this myself. So I'm hoping that recording and editing this episode helps me. This whole experience scares the heck out of me. It scares me as a human, it scares me as a dad, as a son, and as a husband, but it also scares me as a professional. I really want to keep going on this path that I'm on as a speaker and an author and a podcaster, but our landscape will forever be changed, and I don't know what my place will be in it all when the dust settles. The uncertainty of this is driving me nuts. Heck, an event that I was scheduled to be a featured speaker at in July just got canceled. July, canceled. It's like everything is up in the air for all of us. So I hope this episode will bring me some inner zen. And I hope you get some inner zen from it. But I also hope, as you can tell, I'm already laughing. I hope you get some laughs. But more importantly, I hope you also get some ed tech knowledge to apply in your situations. Before we get to that ed tech knowledge, though, a note. As with all of my regular episodes, listening today makes you eligible for a certificate of listening, laughing, and learning that you could turn into your school for professional development credits. I can't guarantee they'll accept it, but I have heard from some duct tapers who are getting credit for it. If you want a certificate, you'll go to eduducttape.com, eduducttape.com/certificate. But you'll need the super secret code that I share later in this episode. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let me just grab my soapbox from over here. Yeah. There we go. It's perfect. Climb up on there. It's not about the technology. Seriously, that's what my soapbox moment today is about. It's about how little this is about the technology. This podcast, about the technology, true. The situation we're in, not about the technology. If we focus on the tech, we're focusing on the wrong thing. What should we focus on? The fact that we have scared students who miss their friends and miss their teachers. The fact that we have scared parents who are worried about their jobs and worried about their kids' education and are trying to support their kids using technologies for learning that they've never experienced. The fact that we've got teachers who are scared about all of those things. So we need to focus on the people, not the technology. We can't let this crazy situation turn our world into having the people from the movie WALL-E. If you've never seen the movie WALL-E, please pause this podcast and go watch it. I'll be here when you get done. While I'm sending you to watch other things, I may as well send you to listen to something else as well. Casey Bell did a phenomenal episode of her Shake Up Learning podcast with Jen Pearson a few weeks ago. Jen is a teacher from Texas who moved to China a year ago. She had to come home months ago and has been teaching remotely ever since. She shared about some amazing and invaluable insights, and only about half of them were actually about the technology itself, because it's the secondary thing here. Maybe not even secondary, maybe tertiary. I just want to say tertiary on a podcast. So let's talk about some important points. First, I love one of the things that Jen said in that episode. I'm paraphrasing here, but she pointed out that in this situation, grace is more important than grades. Take it easy on your students and take it easy on their parents. One thing that I want to point out in terms of taking it easy on them is that this is not the time for new technology. If your school is already closed, this is not the time to launch new tech tools. You're going to stress yourself out, you're going to stress your students out, and you're going to stress their parents out. Listen, they're already stressed out. Maybe add in one new technology tool. Sure, you've never used Zoom before and you want to launch it for video chats. You need that connection with your kids and they need that connection with you. It's not ideal to launch it when you're not in there to support them because you're turning parents into reluctant IT professionals and tech support, but okay, maybe just that one. Seriously though, take it easy on them and take it easy on yourself. Next, students miss you and miss their classmates. Find ways to help them make those connections. And it doesn't need to relate to content. It's not the most important thing right now. On that podcast that I mentioned, Casey pointed out Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yes, what a great point she made there. Before our kids can learn, they need those needs to be met. They need their connections. They need to know you care. That stuff needs to be first. I've got some more thoughts to share about how to best handle this situation, but I'm going to save them until later in the episode. Look, the duct tapers are going to share a lot of tech integration ideas that can help you in this situation, but please know it might be too late. If you're already closed down, it might be too late to use any of this. Just swallow that pill and move on. You know what? To help you with that bitter pill, let's have some fun first. Here's our dose of which of the following would be less torturous, courtesy of my 6-year-old son, Beckett. Take it away, Beck.
Which of these things do you consider to be less torturous?
Which following would be less torturous? Eating the stem of a pumpkin or eating part of a log?
Things, buddy. And here are some duct tapers' responses.
Hey, Jake. Hey, duct tapers. It's Lance McClard. I'm in Missouri. I'm a K-4 principal, and I'm probably not following the instructions correctly because I just don't do that very well. You can ask my former teachers. I would rather eat a piece of a log because you didn't specify how big that piece is. So I would get a little bitty piece. I think that is the way to go.
Lance is right. He didn't follow directions. He was only supposed to respond to one question per video, and he responded to all three. So we'll hear the rest of Lance's answers later because they're good ones. I just couldn't take them out. Let's hear what somebody else says about our pumpkin stem or log question here.
All right. Hey, Miller kids, how are you? My name is Lester Dinerstein. I work out of Moreno Valley in Southern California. I'm a big Disney fan. See? Disney. But, all right, let's look at what you got. You got, which of the following would be less torturous? Eating a stem from a pumpkin or eating part of a log? Now, I got to go with Lance, who's from Missouri. I was born in St. Charles, Missouri. You might know where that is. It's right next to St. Louis. But anyway, I think, when I was a little kid, I actually ate the stem of a pumpkin once. And my dad had to take it away, and then I stole it back, and then I was chewing on it. So I'm going to have to say a log, and I'm guessing that your log is going to be really big. So I only got a few seconds left. I hope that answers your question, and have a great day.
All right, Beckett, what do you think of Mr. Less's answer there?
Pretty good.
You think it was pretty good? I think it was a little bit weird.
Yeah.
His story was a little bit goofy. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite part about his answer was that he rephrased the question. That's a classic teacher thing to do.
I'd rather eat a stem of the pumpkin, too.
You're going for the stem of a pumpkin?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I think I would do that, too, because it's kind of like a vegetable, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Let's hear what somebody else said. Becky, ready? There was a head nod. Becky, people can't hear your head nodding in a podcast. Are you ready to hear more?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Mrs. Bartholomew, and I think I would rather eat the stem of a pumpkin because I think it would maybe be a little softer, and if I'm really lucky, it will taste a little bit like pumpkin.
All right, Beck, it looks like Mrs. Bartholomew agrees with you. I like her reasoning that maybe it tastes a little bit like pumpkin, like some pumpkin pie or like a pumpkin spice latte. Beckett's nodding his head in agreement with me right now. We've got one more response to hear from, and this comes from our buddy Manny Curiel and his son Liam.
Hey guys, this is Manny Curiel and this is Liam being a hot mess. I would definitely eat the stem of a pumpkin. Why? Because, I eat the skin of the shrimp anyway, so logs, I don't know, they're too dry. But a pumpkin, to me, I'm like, they might be softer, especially if it's fresh. I would totally do the stem of a pumpkin a whole lot better than a log, because it'd be too dry and unsanitary. And depending on the tree, I don't like roaches, and we have pine trees here in Texas, so pumpkin all the way.
Okay, so now that we've giggled and had a little bit of fun, let's actually get into some educational duct tape. So I've got 3 questions for the duct tapers today that I think will benefit those of you in remote learning situations. And our first question is, which tech tool would you use for live, synchronous video lectures or discussions with students? Now, I want to remind you guys that the tech is not our goal, but if you have a goal where you feel like you need to either have a live discussion or do a live lecture or actually be able to communicate with your students live, like if that's something you want to achieve, then maybe live synchronous video is a tool that you need. So let's hear what the duct tapers have to say about what tools they would recommend.
Mike Feldman here from Orange City Schools. My Twitter handle is @FeldmanTech. And what I would do is I would have a computer set up with OBS, which is a free streaming software, much like what a lot of people use on Twitch or video game streamers. Anybody who screencasts for a living uses a software like this. This is a free version. And what I would do is I would set it up to stream to a YouTube Live channel. Whatever I was trying to teach would go to YouTube Live. And the cool feature is you can invite whoever you want to the live feed via email, or you can just have them subscribe to your channel or a link, and it just automatically does that. You can also set OBS to stream to other software if you want to, but YouTube Live is good because it automatically also records the session. So if you're teaching a lesson, the kids don't necessarily have to be taking active notes. They can just be listening and absorbing. And then they can go back to, or kids that weren't available at that time because, well, in this time that we're in right now, they could be taking care of their siblings. They could be doing chores around the house. They could do all sorts of different things that are stopping them from doing synchronous activities with the rest of their classmates. The other thing is you don't have to monitor what students are doing in the background. They don't necessarily have the same gotchas as Google Hangouts Meet or Zoom does. One of the biggest problems I see with Zoom is you can't monitor what the students are doing, which shouldn't be the focus right now, but with the day and age, it's still something that I worry about. And with Google Hangouts Meet, the channel stays open. Nothing, and I'll say that again, nothing is perfect. But these are just a couple tools that I see. They all have their benefits. They all have their reasons. There's no right answer, but that's what I would do.
Thank you for that, Mike. I've got to tell you, your video freaked me out a little bit because I was like, who is this man wearing a hat with no goatee? I barely recognized you at first. I like the clean-shaven look. You're ready for spring, I think, or maybe you're just trying to keep those coronavirus germs out of your chin hairs. I'm not sure what your plan is, but I like it. It's a good move. But I also like your advice because I use OBS when I do live courses and live streams and things like that on the Facebook group, and OBS is a great app. It's free. It's open is what the O stands for, so anybody can use it. You can't use it from a Chromebook, but you can view it from a Chromebook. Another option that people are starting to use more and more is StreamYard, which does have a cost to it, but they're both tools that could let you broadcast live to YouTube Live or something like that, which I think is a valid idea. The nice things here, which Mike kind of alludes to, is the kids already know how to use that platform, YouTube, to watch, right? And the other nice thing is the security issue and the behavior issue where the kids aren't really part of the video, which maybe is something that's important to some of you. So if that's important to you, this might not be the best option for you. But the nice thing here is the kids are really just watching you, and there's a chat that they could type in. So there's no video element where the kids can kick each other off or communicate or things like that. And then Mike points out some of those, downfalls of using things like Zoom or Meet or things like that, and why he thinks this is a better option. And this brings us back, some of these other people are going to say Zoom or Google Meet, and that brings us back to the point that you're picking the best tool for you and your learners. It depends on exactly what you're trying to achieve and what you expect from your learners and what kind of content you're teaching or what you're trying to do in the lesson. So like Mike said, there is no right answer. There's just like whatever's best for you, and he's picked that as the one that's best for him. I should also point out that I think it's important that you talk to the other teachers that your students have and try to all do the same thing. So if I'm a middle school student, I have 6 or 7 students or 6 or 7 teachers, and 2 of them are using OBS to YouTube Live, and 2 of them are using Google Meet, and 2 of them are using Zoom. That's 3 different platforms that I need to get used to. So it's best if we all do the same thing. It might not always be practical, but when possible, we should try to do the same thing. Let's hear from somebody else.
Hey everyone, my name's Lance McClard. I'm a K-4 principal in Southeast Missouri, and we're currently closed. We made the announcement yesterday during our PD day, so our teachers are off 2 days, and then they're coming back in to plan for 2 days, and then I believe our students resume April 6th, so we're out for a while. I think the tool that we would use just depends on what you've been using in class. Since we're in elementary school, I don't think we would use Zoom where we're going back and forth, but I think you would want a video where you could provide some kind of instruction. I know not everyone has that ability to access it, but most of our teachers use Seesaw, so I would say I would definitely use Seesaw. Some of the teachers use Google Classroom, so they could push out videos. I know some of them use Flipgrid, which would be great for demonstrating something and then having students respond, and even asking students to respond to each other. I think Flipgrid's set up perfectly for this. I think it kind of goes with your philosophy that it's not necessarily about the tool. There's plenty of tools that can accomplish it. I think it's more about you're not trying to teach them how to use different technology tools while you don't have the students. So you want to use something that you have or something that has a low barrier for students to be able to use. So for us, that would be Seesaw and probably Flipgrid, maybe pushing it out every once in a while with Google Classroom with our older students. All right, everyone. See ya.
So there's a pattern in all of Lance's responses to the grid that I put out there for this episode, and that's that Lance didn't follow directions and like any of them. It's okay, Lance, I love you. I wanted to include this one anyhow, though, because Lance's answer gives a really good point, and that's that he doesn't feel like in his setting, in his circumstance, in his situation with his students and his learners, that live video is the right option here. And that's really important, that you be really mindful of what is it exactly that you're trying to achieve. And that's what we do in Educational Duct Tape, is we really clearly define what our goal and problem is first before we select the tool. So don't just go like, oh, Mike said I should use OBS, I'm using it. Or, oh, Lance said use Flipgrid, so I'm using it. No, we think first, what is it that we're trying to achieve? And then we use this knowledge that we're getting from these other people to decide which one to go with. Let's hear another one.
Hey there, Stephanie DeMichael from Cleveland, Ohio. Real quickly, I think the tool that I would most likely use for synchronous learning right now to create a discussion would be Parlay Ideas. I was a former high school English teacher, and I was a big fan of Socratic seminars to get discussions going and to put it in the hands of students. So ParlayIdeas.com allows you to create an online Socratic seminar. And not only that, it gives you data for who interacted, how many times, best questions. You can provide a rubric for students. And it is an asynchronous tool. You can use it as well. But I think right now to get students engaged, that's what I'd use.
All right, so my buddy Stephanie DeMichael here, also like Lance, can't quite follow directions and didn't use a video tool, but that's okay. It highlights the fact that we all should use whatever works best for us and our learners. And I absolutely love the tool Parlay that Stephanie suggested. It is a great tool. There's no video element in there, but if that's okay with you, it is a fantastic discussion platform. Probably not appropriate for younger students unless, of course, you've gone over it with them in class before, which obviously in this situation, many of you have not. I think high schoolers could probably pick it up and run with it right now. It'd be nice to be able to do it with them in the same classroom as you, but it's certainly a great tool to consider. Okay, let's hear another one.
Hey everyone, this is Dan Stitzel from Streetsboro City Schools. We are currently closed the next 3 weeks, with one of those weeks being our scheduled spring break. My role in the district is our technology coach, so I am trying my best to communicate with the staff more than I know our teachers are with students. The way that our tech team is doing this is we created a Google Classroom where staff can join that class, and then they can ask questions at any point just by adding to the stream, and then a member of the tech team will get back to them as soon as possible. We're also keeping a document where we're kind of running it as a FAQ. So we will add those questions that staff members asked, and then we'll put answers as well as maybe some video tutorials if necessary. We are also using Google Hangouts Meet. The way we're doing that is we're putting the links to the Meet on our Google Classroom and letting people know ahead of time what time we'll be on there to give advice and answer questions. So we did our first one today. So last night I posted the link and said, hey, I'll be on this Google Hangout Meet at 9 o'clock. You can come on in, you can ask questions, or if you just want to see how Google Hangouts Meet works, this is your opportunity. We had a couple staff members that joined, and it was nice for us just to all to be able to communicate and talk to each other. So that's how we're staying in touch on the staff portion. I know some of our teachers are using Google Hangout Meet as well. Lots of Flipgrid, lots of Google Classroom as well.
Hi, my name is Kim Logie Bates. I'm from Brighton, Michigan. I work with Oakland Schools, which is the county-wide ISD. I work with 3 different school districts. Currently, all schools in Michigan are closed through until at least April 6th, with the 3rd week in some districts being spring break and some districts not. So we'll see where that all goes. I'm the technology integration specialist, so I work primarily with the teachers. I've spent the last 3 or 4 days working with staffs in professional development, trying to get them kind of up and running to provide opportunities for students. And I heard Seesaw, Flipgrid, and Classroom, which are some of the things that our teachers are using. Another thing that our teachers are using and our 6-12 kiddos, with our 6-12 kiddos, is Google Meets to do asynchronous learning a little bit with them. So we're trying to provide some learning opportunities for interaction between them. I have some teachers who are using Zoom, which opened its platform to use with parents, especially of the K-5 crowd. We do have some age 13 things going on, so we want to make sure that it's with parents, not with kids. So usually using Google Meets for administrative conversations. We did several meetings in Google Meets to practice social distancing, and at one point we had 120 people in a Google Meets meeting. So that was super good. The final thing that I would think that teachers could use to do asynchronous to do synchronous would be Screencastify. A lot of my teachers do quick videos of things that they want to share with their staffs and post them in Google Classroom. So I would say Meet, Zoom, or Screencastify.
Okay, so two awesome responses there. The first one from our friend Dan, and the first one coming from Kim. Dan and Kim, thank you so much for those. First, I want to point out, I think Kim had her words backwards there in part of her video. She was talking about synchronous and asynchronous. Synchronous means at the same time. Asynchronous means at different times. With these video tools, it's nice to be able to do synchronous, but then maybe have a recording so the kids can watch it asynchronously, meaning whenever they want to. So Kim and Dan both mentioned Google Hangouts Meet. Now, it's called Google Hangouts if you're on a Gmail. It's now called Google Meet if you're on a G Suite platform, whether it's business or education. And then the second tool that Kim mentioned there was Zoom. Now, some people have been expressing some problems with Google Meet, one of which is that when students come in, they could take each other out of it. There's just a minus button they can click on to kick somebody else out of the room. That's certainly a problem. And another of which is that, as Mike alluded to there, when you're doing a Google Meet, afterwards, it actually stays open. That link stays active. I'm not sure how long it actually stays active, but kids are able to come back in there and chat, which I don't know. That might be a big problem for you. That might not be a big problem for you. Certainly, if there's anything bad happening there, you don't want to be a party to that by having provided that space for them. But they could be doing it otherwise. So I don't know. And the second one that Kim mentioned there was Zoom. Zoom is the one that I'm kind of leaning to right now. They normally have a 40-minute cap, and for teachers, they're making it be any length meeting is free. It's nice because the person making the meeting has to have an account, but nobody else does. That's actually true with Google Hangouts Meet as well, although it's a little bit more difficult in my experiments on iOS, like using Safari. It kind of prompts you to go to an app, and then that app prompts you to put in an account. In most situations, it's not a problem. I think Zoom or Meet are both just fine. Let's hear what our friend David Allen says for this.
Hey everybody, my name is David Allen. I'm a special ed consultant for the Hardin County Schools here in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. Right now I'm at home. Today was my first day of working from home. We are in what's called non-traditional instruction, which is basically remote learning. Right now we are scheduled to be off or to be doing the NTI days for the next 2 weeks. And then we have a week of spring break. So we're not really due back in the classroom until the first week of April. But we really don't know if we're going back then. Right now our district is in a scramble trying to get packets ready and try to make sure that students are, fed right now. I think one of the things that I would like to try, or one tech tool I think could work is live streaming with StreamYard. Go ahead and stream it from Facebook. There is a chat feature. That way you can kind of gather feedback of, are the students getting the lesson? What are they missing? What do you need to focus on? Maybe what you need to focus on less. So that's one of the tech tools I would like to try. So I hope everybody's doing okay, and we'll talk to everybody later. Bye.
Thank you for that, David. I actually got to meet David last week at KISTI. It was the last speaking event I had before everybody kind of went into lockdown. It actually kind of all happened the day I was traveling home from KISTI. So it was good getting to meet David down there, even though the circumstances were crazy. And as you heard there, his suggestion was using StreamYard, which I alluded to earlier, and I think we're going to be hearing about StreamYard again from the next person. Before we jump into that, though, I do want to point out, I alluded to this earlier, some of the stuff that I said about Google Meet and that Mike Feldman brought up about Google Meet is that there are some, it's not perfect. The kids have the ability to kick each other out of the room. The kids have the ability to come back into the room later when the teacher's not there and talk to their classmates, which I'm not sure if that's a bad thing, but if bad things happen, then it's a bad thing. The one thing I want to point out that this situation we're in right right now with school closings due to this, especially these prolonged school closings, this is a new playground for us and for our kids. And therefore, there are new expectations that we need to set, and there are new rules that we need to set. Our students learned to walk on the right side of the hallway, to raise their hand in class, to shut their computer when their teacher's talking, to write things down in their planner, to do all of these different things. They will learn the new expectations we have for them now as well if we set them first. So if you're having problems with these things, just talk to the kids about it and set those ground rules. Once they know and they've heard from you this is not appropriate to do, more likely than not, they're going to listen to you. Okay, let's now hear from one of my favorite voices in educational technology, the host of the House of EdTech podcast and one of the hosts of Podcast PD, Mr. Chris Nesi.
Hey, what's up, duct tapers? It's Chris Nesi from the House of EdTech podcast. The tool that I would use to get all of my students in the same place at the same time is one that I've been using since my school went on distance learning just a couple of days ago, and that is StreamYard. StreamYard.com is free. You can pay, but it is free. And what StreamYard allows you to do is you can live stream to YouTube or Facebook or Periscope or LinkedIn or a Facebook group or a Facebook page or to Twitch. And it's great because you can get your students in a place that they are familiar. So if you have a YouTube channel set up either personally or with your school Google credentials, it's a great way to get your kids in a setting that they are used to. StreamYard lets you share your screen. You can provide a link for people to jump in and participate in your live stream. And because you're using the power of YouTube, number one, it's recorded, and now it's available on YouTube for you to share in Google Classroom if students miss it. It also offers a great chat feature that's powered by YouTube, and the chat will play back in real time for students who can't be there live. And I think it's a fantastic tool that allows you to create great content really easily. So, for example, you could be doing a Google slideshow or pull up any document on your screen and you can share it, and it makes it real easy to produce the video content. And if your students are there in real time, they can ask questions in the chat that you can monitor, or you can bring them right into your live stream and they can be on board that way. Now, you might be thinking, I work with students who are younger than 13. What do I do? Well, you can make the video private or unlisted so it's not publicly searchable or able to put their faces out there. And the other thing that you can do is if you have students younger than 13 and they want to come onto your broadcast, they don't have to turn on the camera. They can just utilize their microphone on their smart device or their computer or their tablet, and you don't have to have their face be a part of the broadcast, but you can certainly hear their voice. Again, check out StreamYard, and I'm Chris Nesi from the House of EdTech podcast on chrisnesi.com. Go Jake. Talk to you soon.
Wow, lots of great insights from Chris there about StreamYard. I personally have never used StreamYard, so that was a really valuable response for me to hear kind of him break down what it does there. It's nice that it is a feature where really they're just seeing their teacher, but the teacher has the ability, if they choose to bring the students in on video, and there's that chat there for students to communicate on. The nice part is, as he kind of alluded to, you could stream it directly to YouTube, and then all the kids have to do is get to that YouTube link. So you're not asking them to learn a new platform. You're just asking them to go to YouTube and watch. Maybe it's new for them to have the chat over on the right, but otherwise, unless they're like calling in and participating in your lesson, they're not actually learning a new tool. So that is a pro there. He had made some good points about students that are under 13 there. That it is a little risk because obviously when the students are in, if they participate in the chat, their names will appear. And if they come on video, their names will appear and then potentially their faces, although Chris suggested some ways around that. So that's something you'd want to check on and see if that's okay for you if you're dealing with students who are under 13 years old. You maybe can also turn off the chat and things like that, and then they wouldn't even know who those names were, and then maybe it wouldn't be such a big deal if you weren't bringing the kids on screen, and if they weren't appearing in the chat, maybe then they're just seeing you talking, and that's fine. If you want to see StreamYard in action, Chris and AJ Bianco and Stacy Lindis just did an episode of their Podcast PD podcast live via StreamYard a couple days ago, so you can go watch that YouTube video. I'll actually put it in the show notes so you can watch it, and they're using StreamYard to do that, and you'll see their 3 video feeds on screen, and then at times they'll bring in guests, and that's how that's working, is they're bringing those guests in using StreamYard. So if you want to kind of see what that looks like, that's a pretty great example of it. Let's hear one more.
Hey guys, my name is Manny Curiel, and I am an EdTech specialist in Houston, Texas. I support teachers pre-K through 12, a lot of teachers. Great variety, and I would still suggest for synchronous learning Zoom to begin with. Zoom is amazing. And you'll say, for little kids? Yes, because parents are at home. So they can totally help. So the teacher will send either a link or they can send a code, and then they will just go to zoom.com and then log in with that. And that's it. It's free for 45 minutes. They can do unlimited, but it's only 45 minutes long, which you don't need a lecture more than that, hopefully. And then if you want longer, you have to pay. But we do our EdTech Lives that way. So if you go to YouTube now and call Sci-Fair EdTech Live, then you'll find tons of sessions that we have had with presenters like Jake and myself and other people, but to learn about tech tools. So it's really cool. So the kid can be interactive with the teacher live through either the YouTube chat or the Zoom chat. It's super awesome. And it also gets recorded, and you can upload it into, I don't know, Classroom, or you can upload it and Flipgrid too, because through a link. So it's super cool. Then Flipgrid's obviously another one that I absolutely love, having Flipgrid reflections. I started doing it with my kids, and they're starting to log everything they see, and then they share it. And then my husband goes and replies, and they love it. They love it. Create one for their friends, for school, so they can share. Edpuzzle is my absolute favorite. I love it, because you can embed questions. You can use YouTube, because even if you have a filter like we do, we block YouTube, but they're at home, so it doesn't really matter. So you can grab YouTube videos or teachers' videos and upload it, embed questions. And it's not necessarily for a grade, but just to check understanding to see if they got it. And then because the parents are going to be there, they can totally help. So those are my 3 suggestions: Flipgrid, Edpuzzle, and absolutely Zoom.
Oh, Manny, I love the laugh at the end, man. You're just such a pleasure, man. I love having you involved with the show. Thank you, Manny, for that response. One point I want to make on what Manny said there is that Zoom did say that they're taking away that 45-minute limit from educators. I think it's just for these 2 months. I'm not 100% certain on that, but at least for the time being, and maybe forever, you can access for longer than 40 or 45 minutes or whatever he said it was for free as a teacher. But he makes a good point. Should you really be lecturing or having a class or something like that for longer than that? Maybe if it's open office hours, it's valid. Maybe it's not. But still, there is now no time limit for educators on Zoom, at least for the time being, and it might be forever. I forget, regardless. And then Manny also makes a great point there that Flipgrid is great for asynchronous versions of this same thing, which it's an easy-to-use tool, especially if you've been using it in your classroom. It's a really nice way to connect and have the students connecting with each other. Maybe it's a lower barrier of entry than some of these things that we talked about here. So lots of good ideas shared there by the Duct Tapers. That does it for that question, but we got some other stuff to talk about here. First up, before we do that, I want to point something out before we move on. I did not know the answer to this question. You know what? I still don't know the answer to this question because there's so many choices. And some of these responders did not know their answer until they asked someone or researched it. Be comfortable admitting that. I often say that I'm not a know-it-all. I'm a learn-it-all. And what I mean is I can learn anything. If I have a purpose for learning it, I can and I will. I think that you're all here because you're learn-it-alls. So whatever you have a purpose for learning, now is the time to learn it because you're a learn-it-all. You can. And you know what? Last second on the fly decision here. I'm going to stop this episode right now, and I'm going to share the rest of this content with you tomorrow. Why? Because this is taking a heck of a lot of time, and I have 3 kids who want to play with me. Why else? Because I want to make sure you hear all of the good stuff, so I'm going to get this to you as soon as possible and not have to wait a couple more hours for me to finish the editing. So I'm going to push out this episode here in like 5 minutes as soon as I'm done talking, and then I'm going to push out another episode with the second question that I posted on Flipgrid tomorrow. That's Thursday, March 19th, and then a third episode on Friday. That's March 20th with the 3 different questions we have here. So those will all be available to you. All right, hold on. I'm getting interrupted. I'm getting a last second news item. Today's super secret code is pumpkin, as in a pumpkin stem. Like Beckett asked about, the secret code is pumpkin. All right, thank you for that, creepy whisper Jake, who shares the super secret code. Those of you who are like, I just skip forward 15 seconds every time you do that, Jake. It's so creepy. I have to keep doing it now because it's part of my shtick. It's part of my thing. So yes, as super secret code whisper Jake mentioned, if you head to eduducttape.com/certificate, you could fill in that super secret code and the title of today's episode and what you learned, and I will automatically email you. I'm not sitting on my computer waiting for you to do it. It's automatically generated an email to you with a PDF of a certificate that shows that you spent 0.75 hours listening to today's episode and what you heard on that episode, so that you could turn in for professional development credit, or don't. Some of you just the learning is enough. You don't need the certificate for it, and that's fine too. But if you do happen to need to renew your license or anything like that, and need some credits, I'd like to help you out with that. So that does it for today's episode. I hope that you will return with us tomorrow, the very next day, not even 24 hours from now, for episode or part 2, I should say, of this episode. Make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss it. A lot of them make it pop up in your feed. So go to your favorite podcast app, wherever you're listening to this, and just click that subscribe button, and it'll pop up automatically for you to listen to. It'll be right there and ready for you tomorrow as soon as I publish it and put it out there as part 2 of this episode, where we're going to talk. I think the second question was about how we could do formative assessment in remote learning. And then we've got a which of the following would be less torturous question coming from my 10-year-old son, Cohen. You're not going to want to miss the fun responses we got for that one. Again, that's tomorrow. Subscribe so that you don't miss it. A reminder that we will still have our Twitter chat next week, and we'll talk about these very topics that we talked about in today's episode and tomorrow's episode and Friday's episode. That is next Wednesday, March 20-something. I don't know what it is, at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we normally do. I hope that you'll join us. We always have a blast. Finally, please share this episode with anybody who you think would benefit from listening to it. Please rate this episode in Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or Pod. There's another one where there's Podchaser, I think, has ratings. I don't know. Whichever one you go to, if there's a ratings thing in there, that does help other people discover the show, and all we want to do is help them, so it's a great place to do it. If you have some questions, feel free to join us in the Educational Duct Tapers Facebook group on Facebook. Just search for Educational Duct Tapers. I'll put a link in the show notes too. That way you could join us and ask some questions or share some successes you're having right now. I will also put in the show notes links to that Shake Up Learning episode I mentioned, links to the Podcast PD episode that used StreamYard that I mentioned, and also Manny mentioned how EdTech Live uses StreamYard, so I'll also put in a link to that one. But that does it for today's show. Please know that I appreciate what you're doing for your students and for the people around you during these tough times. Please know that I appreciate your hard work. Please know I appreciate your lifelong learning. I hope that everything is going okay for you. I hope that you're healthy. I hope that you stay healthy. I hope that your students know how hard you're working for them, and I hope that they appreciate you as much as I do, and I hope the same thing for their parents, that they appreciate your hard work and that they appreciate you. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep on learning. Keep on having fun. Keep on going, and I will see you tomorrow morning.
Thank you for listening to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. Please visit eduducttape.com to join the discussion, share possible topics, inquire about being a guest, or contact Jake. And remember, duct is spelled with a T, not a quack quack K.